if we lived in a normal world, a sane world, where right-wing billionaire ghouls didn't control our entire media ecosystem and social media networks, you might have heard today that we've had some good news, right? There's been some very good news that's happened in this country, right? In a normal world, we would talk about this. We'd celebrate. We'd go, wow, Britain, you did some good shit. Well done. Pat on the back. And that is that homicides in the UK have just reached a 50-year low. That's ONS data showing that, yeah, we have had the lowest rate of homicide since 1977, largely driven by a decrease in knife crime. That's incredible news, right? There was also some data recently about London. London homicide rate per capita is its lowest since records began, recorded its lowest homicide figure in 11 years. And that puts London at 1.1 homicides per 100,000 people. That is lower than any other UK city and below many comparable global cities. That includes New York, Berlin, Milan, Toronto, and significantly lower than places in America such as Los Angeles, Houston, Chicago, Philadelphia. These places 12 times the murder rate of London. This is good news, right? That should be, it talks about knife crime here and also victims under the age of 25, massive drops, right? This is good news. This is a really good thing. We should be very proud of this. We should talk about this a lot, but we don't because right-wing ghouls control the media. And this alone should be a massive problem for Farage because they're running on this whole thing of lawless Britain, right? They talk about this I forget her name, Lila Cunningham, whatever, who wants to be the London mayor, the reformed London mayor. Good luck. She keeps talking about how, Britain is out of control, London's out of control, crime is insane. And what they do, this alone should completely dispel a lot of that. But what they do is they do two things. Firstly, they'll insinuate conspiracy. They'll say this is a lie. You can't trust the data. Blah blah blah. So where there's data that conflicts their worldview, it's a conspiracy. Oh, who's keeping the data? Blah blah blah. But when there's data that looks to support their hypothesis, which we'll see it with, I'll give you two examples: sex crime, and secondly, phone theft. Suddenly, they believe the data, the official data, by the same people. They believe this data now. And they say this is concrete evidence, right? The same source of data, because it plays into their bias and their worldview, they now believe in it. So we'll talk about first one, right? We'll talk about is let's do the phone theft. So I spoke about this in another video, but phone theft, right? Let's go back to the 2000s. How high do you think phone theft was? Do you think it was high? No. In the 90s, do you think it was high? In the 80s, do you think phone theft was high? No. Because phones didn't fucking exist. Phone theft has risen because phone usage has risen, right? There's a concept in criminology. It's something like market incentive crime, whatever. A new market pops up with new technology and you will see criminals adapt. It's like market adaptation, I think it's called, something like that. So when a new market emerges for criminals, they will do it more, right? So, if in the early days you'd steal a phone, you might be able to sell it to, I don't know, your mate down the shop or whatever, your dodgy mate on the market, at Bovey Market. We had a place called Bovey Market, and it was always known, I think it was in Luton, it was always known as the dodgy place. You could go and sell some shit you stole. I didn't steal, right? But I know some guys. You would go and sell some shit. But now, over time, these become elaborate networks, right? Phones become more valuable, right? Your Nokia 3210, you get a couple of quid for it, but now you're getting iPhones, right? And so markets open up internationally. You create these whole black markets where people now know who to give it to. They will sell it, and these phones will end up being sold in China, right? There's a whole market around it. That market grew as the phone market grew, parallel. Back in the 90s, whilst you may not have seen phone theft, you would have saw car radio theft because cars introduced radios and they were things that you would plug into the car. And they could obviously be taken out. So very, very common crime in the 90s. Probably everyone, if you grew up in that era, you know someone who had their car radio stolen. Bash in the window, grab the radio, you dip, and you sell it. Right? This was common. Now, this crime, if we were doing the same right-wing bullshit back then, we'd be going, oh my God, the crime rates are going up. It's mental. You can't leave your car. You blah, blah, blah. Right? Because, yeah, it was growing. And then over time, car manufacturers just installed the radio into the car. You can't steal it anymore. The crime drops off because there's no market opportunity for it. So that's like an explanation. You'll see this with phones over time. They'll probably get better. It depends. We'll see how the technology evolves. But they'll probably get better at dealing with this crime. It'll make it so that phones are really hard to be used once they're stolen. I know that already some of this stuff exists. So that's part of it, right? That's one of them. The other one I said about was sex crimes. So sex crimes is the other one where they'll point to the data, the official data, and they'll go, look, sex crimes are up. And then you go, oh yeah, it does look like it's going up. But if you were to read what the people who make the data say about the reason it's gone up, they will say it's because we've expanded our recording and definitions of terms like rape, right? If rape meant one very specific thing back in the 90s, you know, the most aggressive version of it you can imagine, now we include things like inappropriate touching, maybe filming people like, I think it has the term of upskirting. They film people and stuff like that. These things start falling into the category of sex crimes, whereas in the past it didn't, right? Did you know that back in the 90s, legally, you were able to sexually assault your wife and that would not be considered sexual assault because the definition that we recorded under, women had shitter rights back then, but the definition didn't encompass that, right? So by opening up the definition of it, doesn't mean that there are more incidents of these things happening. You have to prove that. It shows that we are just becoming better at recording these things, right? Maybe we become better at encouraging people to come forward and talk about these things. And, you know, maybe I think one of the other one is historic cases. We've started to allow, I believe, you have to fact check this one, historic cases to come forward and be reported. So yeah, there's all these things, right, that show an increase in sex crime. The same, it's very common, that story is the one in Sweden, right? They did exactly the same thing. There was a year where they changed the definition. It goes up like that. Right wingers, just they are so manipulative. They do not engage with that. If you say that to anyone, what do they say? Oh, that's convenient. Because what they do, if the data shows, if official data shows something close to what they think, they jump on it. When official data shows something opposite to what they think, they claim it's conspiracy. Right? It's always conspiracy. It always works in their bias and their pre-chosen opinion, right? They've already decided Britain is lawless, Britain is criminal, right? So they now will pick and choose data and use conspiracy to brush aside data that does or doesn't fit that narrative. So this data should be everywhere. We should be celebrating it. We won't be because the right-wing ghouls, you know, they control everything. So yeah, you're not going to see it all over Daily Mail. You're not going to see Farage talking about this. You're not going to see any of the British patriots who love Britain, who want to celebrate British culture, celebrate a great achievement of British culture. We've actually got better. One of the things that we've done is reducing knife crime, because I believe Sadiq Khan and the team are starting to do like the approach that was done back in the 2000s in Glasgow. So Glasgow had the highest murder rate in all of Europe. Murders were insane, right? For a European nation, it was insane. And what they did, and this was just, you know, if there's any racists watching, this was when Glasgow would be like 90+% white, 95+% white. It was white people, right? Highest crime rate. Okay, if you want to try and insinuate it has something to do with immigration or ethnicity, it doesn't, right? This goes against your hypothesis there. So it had the highest knife crime. And what they did was a very specific, targeted approach of dealing with young people before they fell into knife crime, right? Really hands-on, really close, really involved, and got them away from crime. Fantastic, brilliant. London didn't choose to do that because we went down the whole stop and search, be a dick to everyone, and try and hope that if we just wrestle them hard enough, they'll stop stabbing each other. That was our approach, and it didn't work. The opposite, it went the wrong way. Knife crime went up for a period of time. And it has come down because we've started to do this more logical, rational approach to dealing with crime. Right-wingers do not want that. They never want to solve the problem. They want endless, perpetual problems that can never be solved, and they will only point to the solutions that will worsen the problems. That's their thing, because that's how they stay in power. If the crisis is ever solved, they lose their power. So I hope no Labour fan, but they should sing the praises of this. This is a job well done. Sadiq Khan, job well done. And just Britain as a whole, the way we've lowered homicide, job well done. They should celebrate this. And yeah, fucking insanity. You're not going to hear this story from any of the right-wingers. Just thought I'd give you some good news mixed with me ranting about right-wingers, as we do on this channel. Make sure you subscribe. Love you. Bye-bye.